Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I thought I'd pop upstairs and we'll just have a little catch up. I hope you don't mind, I've got my window open, so if you hear the pond and the pump flowing, I hope you don't mind that. It's a little bit humid up here, I must admit. So what I've got is I've got my pieces of card cut ready. So I've got a 5.5 inch piece of Pink Frog smooth card, so 5.5 inches square, and then I've got a piece of black card excuse me, 5.75 inches square for my mat, and then I've got a card blank which is 6.5 inches square. Now I don't know whether I'm using the mat or not, we will see. So I may just add it like this, because what you can do is before you start a project, I could add my faux mat beforehand. So I've got my 5.5 inch piece of square card and I'm just adding the faux mat around the edge. Now the reason I'm doing this first is if I did it second, or I did it after I'd done my project, if I created a mistake and I slipped and the black faux mat went into the middle of the card, well then I'd ruin the whole card. If I do the faux mat now, it won't ruin the whole card because I haven't decorated it yet. So it's best, if you want to do that faux mat and layer, that you do that first. It's important that you do that first. There's a lot of people that mention that. There's a lot of people that mention about doing the faux mat first. When I had a shop, we used to do this years ago with Krylon pens. Do you remember Krylon pens in gold and silver? We used to do the edges first with gold and silver, and then we'd create our card. Now a lot of designers and creatives are using Posca pens as to create their faux mats. So lots of people are doing that, and lots of people are mentioning that, you know, you should do that first. So what I've got now is I've got a faux black mat, so I might not need my black card. We'll decide when the card develops, but now I've got a faux black mat, and what that means is I've made no mistakes. Whereas if I decorated it and created all my beautiful design and then put the faux black mat on and then slipped with the Posca pen, I'd have then ruined it. So now I'm safe, I can decorate that. So what I'm going to do is, there we go, I'm going to add some low tack tape to my card just so that it doesn't move. What you have to remember is when you see us as demonstrators demonstrating, there's lots of these techniques have been around for years and years. I've been doing this for 28 years now, and I've seen techniques come back, I've seen techniques redeveloped, I've seen techniques posted by companies. They're not, most of them are not new techniques. They've been around for many years. And what I tend to do is, the only technique that I developed myself was one of the spotlight techniques. I did spotlighting many years ago before it became popular. We used to do, in the shop, we used to do square spotlights and then circle spotlights, and this was about decades ago. And what you have to remember is, because there are not many new techniques around, it's nice to develop those techniques. But if you're inspired by somebody, I always like to mention whether I'm inspired by anybody. But the spotlight technique I've done for many years, many decades. So what you have to remember is, as demonstrators, we're just showing you what works for us. That might not necessarily work in exactly the same way for you. Maybe things work differently for you. That doesn't mean that it's a failure. It just means that you work in a different way. Don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as, you know, when you create, you will create in a slightly different way than I do. You will see things in a different way than I do. And that's what's wonderful about artwork, that we all see things differently. And there's always a positive to see in every piece of artwork. So don't punish yourself if you get it slightly different or slightly wrong. It's not wrong. It's just your way of doing things. That's all. It might be different to my way of doing things. That's absolutely fine. That's what being creative is all about. So all as I do is I do videos. I do them to reconnect with you all. I do them to show how to get the most out of my stamps. I don't want them stamps gathering dust on the shelf. So I just showcase what works for me and hope that some of you find it useful, and maybe some little tidbits that you can pick up work for you. So I've stuck a piece of low-tack tape down behind the card so that, look, that doesn't move. So it stays put for me, so I'm not faffing around with it. So this is 5.5 inches square, and I've got a piece of low-tack, no I haven't, I've got a piece of copier paper that I've cut a piece of that I've cut a square from, 3.5 inches square, and it's just copier paper. Now those of you that have got your masking sheets, you know, you may have your masking sheets. I've got some masking sheets somewhere, don't ask me where, but I haven't bought any more, so I'm just using a piece of copier paper. And what I'm doing is I'm going to just press my hand on this low tack tape just so that it's a little less tacky, just so it's not as tacky. And what I'm going to do is place that on my copier paper that's going to act as a mask. And you can see it's copier paper, it's very light and flimsy, and I need it to be light and flimsy. I don't want it to be thick card. If it's thick card, what will happen is you will get a ridge here at the edges, and then when you try to stamp or add anything, it won't work because you'll just get a gap, and there's no way that was straight. So let's just try a little bit better. There we go. That's it. So by using, so Tracy's going to spend the next 20 minutes faffing to get her piece of card where she wants it. So with copier paper, it means I've not got a ridge, because if I use 300 GSM card, I'd have a ridge here, which I don't have now. Right. Of course, the one brush you want is always at the end. So what I'm going to do is, I've had a weekend away, and what I'm going to do is come back and create something I've done many times before, but just use different stamp sets to show that it works with lots of different imagery. Now I'm celebrating because my Ostrich 8 stamp set 810 is back in stock. Yay! So All and Create have got this back in stock on their website, allandcreate.com, and it's back on stock. You can actually put in the code #810 and he will pop up. So I'm going to use him just to celebrate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you see, I'm going to use my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to pick up plenty of colour just on my blending brush. Doesn't matter if you're using cut and dry foam, an ink blending tool, whatever you've got in your drawer. With the brushes, you'll get a slightly lighter, softer blend. With the cut and dry foam, it picks up a lot more ink, it's denser, you'll get a richer, thicker blend. But what I'm doing is I'm starting here. So I'm going to start here and come off onto my square. But even when you think you've got no ink on there, can you see that it just, there's plenty of ink on there. And what I can do is, rather than turn my card, I can turn my non-stick craft sheet if I wish. You just have to be aware, obviously, I'm using copier paper, and if you're a little bit heavy-handed, yes, you will get that copier paper, it'll just flick up. So just be a little bit gentle, don't be too heavy-handed. So just turn around. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm going back and forth just to add layers of that ink. You can see I keep going back and forth. And I'm just turning my non-stick craft sheet just so that it makes it a little bit easier. Normally I would move the card, but I've secured that card down just so it doesn't move. So you can see if I go a little bit heavy-handed, you can see that copy of paper, it just bends. It's not a problem, just sort of hold it in place. Bring it back to the original position. And if you wish, you can add a little bit more of that copy. Sorry, little bit more of that ink. I'm getting my copy of paper and my ink all mixed up. So just blend. So you can continue going round over and over again. And if I just lift the edges like that, you can see I've got that beautiful blend there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and get my lid on my ink pad, and then I'm going to grab one of my background stamps, one of my newer ones. And of course you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be the last one. I've told you it'll be the last one I'll look at. I'm going to use stamp set 922. That's 30 days. So I'm going to use that background one. I love the fact it's got a mix of different text. You know, it's got 60 seconds is 1 minute, 60 minutes is 1 hour. I just love it because it's just a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair Morning Mist. And I'm just going to ink up, as you can see on the left there, the top half of the stamp. So it doesn't matter where I stamp, because I've got that mask in place, so it's not a problem. So I can add little bits of the text. I can add little bits of the text that's little bits of this. So I can sort of mix up the little bits of text that I'm using by using all of the background stamps. So I can use the 60 minutes, 1 hour, etc. I can use that as well and just add this. So I've got that mask in place, so it's not a problem. So I'm stamping all round. You don't have to worry about perfection. You're creating a background piece. It's not a problem. So let's just add so you're just adding sort of little bits of text. You'll get some that is a fainter because it depends how you've inked your stamp. So don't worry about it too much. You're just creating a little bit of a background, which you just want to enjoy. You just want to sort of embrace the fact. And what I'm doing now is I'm using sort of second and third, Tracy can't speak, second and third generation, just to add little bits of text as well, so that in some places you can't actually read what I've put, in other places you can. So you're just going around and just adding little bits. So you've got little bits of text. You can see I've gone further up here and further down here, and you can go back, and if you might have a little bit of ink on your stamp, go back and add a little. It's lovely because you can fill in gaps with just little bits of second generation text, which I just love. I love that stamp because it's very easy to use. So I've got all that round the background, and then what I've got is I've got my other background stamp set, which is number Graffiti 994. So let's pull that out. Now, because I've got that text, I want that text that's round here to be in the background. Let's just place the plastic back on there so we don't lose that. So I want that sort of to be in the background. So to force that into the background, I'm going to stamp with a little bit of Nocturne ink, which is the black. So what I'm going to do is just, now what that does is it pushes the grey in to the background, because the first thing you see is the black and the grey is what you see secondary. Now, I don't want to add too much. I just want to add little bits here and there, not sort of overpower everything. So it's going to have to be an odd number because that will play with my head a little bit. So let's add a little bit here. So I've just added randomly. I'm not thinking about sort of where it's going, more the fact that I've got little bits of stamping and it's quite random. So I absolutely love that. So what I'm going to do is just pick up a piece of copy paper. So I'm going to just, not necessarily for the grey, but because I've stamped the black, it's onto that white card, which is absorbent, which is lovely. But I'm just blotting to make sure I don't smudge anything. So because that black ink has got a really good open time, what that means is it stays wetter longer. The black stays wetter longer than the grey does. So I'm just making sure that's all dry. So let's lift this up. There we go. So you can keep that for another project or for your aperture again. So what I've got then is I've got a beautiful aperture within my project. Let me just lift this up so you can see the detail a little bit. But you can see that the grey goes into the background because the black is stronger in colour. And I just love that. I love the fact that the 30 days, you can just stamp random bits of it and it just makes a lovely background. Really does make a lovely background. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my wonderful Ostrich because I want to celebrate that he is back in stock. So let's take our acrylic block and I'm going to use the border acrylic block just because it's a little bit bigger and it gives me that flexibility if my acrylic block is a little bit bigger than my stamp. Now what you shouldn't do is sort of ink your stamp over your work. I sometimes do that so you can see what I'm doing, but you shouldn't ink over your work because you know what's going to happen and you know why I'm telling you because I've done it that many times. So I'm just inking my Ostrich stamp up. I'm just going to give that a really good layer of ink because I hadn't stamped him for a while because he was out of stock. And I don't like to, you know, sort of use something that's out of stock if it's been out of stock a while. So what I can do is I can decide where to put the Ostrich. Now, if I want to mask some of that area off, I can either cut another square out or I can just take a piece of copy paper. So, did we stamp the Ostrich? I don't know whether we did. So I'm just going to ink the stamp again because what I've decided is I want the Ostrich text. So if I haven't inked the Ostrich text, then, you know, sometimes I say ink more than you actually need. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping this piece of copy paper in place just so I can bring him down a bit. So what that does is just shortens his neck a little bit to go into the aperture. And what I love about the Ostrich is that you've got these sort of, I forgot what I'm trying to, like a ledger sort of background as well. Do you like how my words wouldn't come out then? And even though I'm stamping onto that white card, it's absorbent. I'm making sure that I just take my time. Just give that time to absorb into the card. I don't need to press too hard. I always keep one hand in place. And what I can do is I can lever that acrylic block because I've got an acrylic block that is a little bit bigger. And that means that I can lever it so that it gets the centre part of the stamp. Oh, I just love him. I just love him. Look at him. Hang on. Let's lift this up. Look at him. Look at those eyes. Oh, I just love him. So what I'm going to do is just emphasise the eyes a little bit more, and that's doing absolutely nothing. So I'll just make sure that my gel pen is working. I do mention on every video that sometimes when you're using your gel pens, say that you've used them on acrylic paint, sometimes it picks a little bit of debris up. So it's nice to just clear that debris from your pen, and then your pen will work again. So I'm just going to pick that up again, just so you can see. Look at those eyes. Oh, tell you what, I wish I'd got eyelashes like that. I only did eyelashes like that because this is what I want and I haven't got. There you go. So let's just add. Now you could quite easily leave it like that if you wanted sort of just the monochromatic, but what I'm thinking is, let's just put our little ostrich back. Let's just place him back. I always put it the wrong way. You've also got these splatters, which if you wanted, let's just, after I've just said, let's put it on the packaging. If you wanted to, you can also extend the design, because you can ink. You know when I said don't ink over your project, I'm going to do it. So you can ink the little splatters, and if you want to extend your design, you can just add a few more splatters just at the top, so you can extend this as much as you wish, because you can extend more splatters here, so you can extend a little bit more with the lines here. So there's always there's always a way to extend it. Let's just place that back. So you see, sometimes what I like to do is soften it a little bit with a floral. But that's because, let's be honest, Tracy's mad on florals and she can't help herself. That's more like it. So I do love this stamp set, the little A7 stamp set 986, the Good. It's just got a lovely little floral on there. But what I can do, I can just have a look, you see, and I can stamp. And what's wonderful is this, let's just take my acrylic block so you can see it. This has also got splatters on there, and it's got little circles on there, and it just works beautifully with the design. So I can sort of work out where I want to put the floral, and I can put it by the side. So what I can do is ink up the stamp. So give that a really good inking. Obviously we're going to add a little bit of colour, but I'll just need to cut the flower heads out. So what I can do is I can hover. Now if I wanted to bring it down a bit, which I don't, so I don't need any masking pages, because I can just bring this in to here, like so. And what I'm doing is I'm creating my own collage with different stamps. You can do with this with a lot of stamps if they like this. Like I've got lots of little bits of stamps, and the reason I've got lots of little bits of stamps is so you can add them to other images and create your own collages, which that makes me happy. So I can lift that up just to make sure. Now what I've got is, you wouldn't know that that wasn't a whole stamp. You wouldn't think that, let's tilt it like that so you can see it better. You wouldn't think that this is one stamp and then that's another. So it's lovely because you can create your own collages. So I'm just going to give that a little blot. Now what I want to do is add a pop of colour to this. So I'm going to grab some spare card. Let's see if we should have some under the desk. There we go. Now, sometimes it will help you if you put layers of copy paper underneath your project as well. That will give you some sponginess to stamp onto. I don't tend to bother, but if you're new to stamping, add a load of copy paper or a magazine underneath. It'll just give you a bit of sponginess. So what I'm going to do is take the floral again, and we're going to add a pop of colour. So we're going to stamp those florals again. It's funny because even when I've got a scrap of card, I tend to stamp in the middle of the card. I don't know why I don't stamp at the edge and make the most of the card. It's just what I get engrossed in something and then just stamp in the middle of a piece of card. So what I've got now is I've got my 2 florals, but I can simply colour in. Now, if I'm going to use my Prismacolor pencils, it's nice if you can give the ink time to rest so that you don't smudge that ink. This takes a couple of, a couple of moments to dry. So if I'm using my Prismacolor pencils, I tend to like to give it time to just to rest, or dry it with your heat tool. I don't want to do that on this occasion. So to give it a little bit more time to dry, what I'm going to do is cut out the floral. Cut that out. And I'm going to leave a tiny white border just around there, just to make that pop a little bit. And what I love doing is I love showing how you can create simple projects, more detailed projects, either simply layered or a lot more complex layers. But what I love about when I'm designing is that you can add so many of these images to other stamps that I've created in the range. So that makes me happy. It just extends the little family of imagery. And just cut our floral out. And these videos also give me a chance to indulge in the hobby that I enjoy, and I have enjoyed for many years. There we go. So that gives me the floral, gives it a little bit of time just to rest before I colour. I'm going to cut out the little floral as well. Now, often I obviously would colour and then cut out. That's what I normally do. But sometimes in a video, we do things in a different order than you might do, just because obviously you're creating the video and during the process that, there isn't time to allow things to dry as long as you wish, unless of course you're one of these beautifully professional video ladies and gentlemen that will edit and then just skip. I just show you warts and all. That's just me all over. Plus I want my videos to be different to others, or else there's no reason for you to watch if mine is exactly the same as everybody else's. Right. What I'm going to do is get my Prismacolor pencils. Now, again, a lot of people often do a swatch. I'm terrible. I don't do swatches, mainly because my room is tiny. I like storage to be neat and tidy, and the amount of product I've got, if I have swatches, I'll have card and swatches everywhere, which I just don't want. But you should really swatch. I'm just telling you, what the professionals recommend. Okay, so these are the 2 colours that I'm going to have. What I do is, because even for me personally, even if I do a swatch, different cards react differently to mediums, and they will show colours up differently as well. So I still like to take my pencils and I will sort of scribble on a piece of card to see if they're the colours I want. Also, that pencil there is a little, it needs sharpening. So what I'm going to do is take my sharpener and I'm going to move my sharpener, not my pencil. Just prevents breakages. And I find with the Prismacolor pencils, because they can be prone to, you know, breakages. So I'm just making sure that I alleviate that by moving the sharpener rather than the pencil. And a lot of the professionals recommend that as well. Right. So I'm going to bring my card in just so that you can continually see it, and then bring in my florals. Let's make sure we get this, doesn't really matter. So the colours that I've got, normally you would have 3 colours and you'd go light, medium and dark. This is not a super big flower, and I don't think I'm going to bother with light, medium, dark. I'm going to use 2 colours. So what I've got is I've got Crimson Red PC 924 and I've got Crimson Lake 925. So they will work nicely together. And what I'm going to do is start with the darkest colour first. And I'm going to just go round in a circular motion and just very gently. And to force myself to colour gently, because if I bring my fingers down here like I did at school and I'm writing, it somehow that unknowingly forces you to press on quite hard. So what I'm going to do is just blend, bring my fingers up further on the pencil, further up, and that just forces me to not press as hard, which is exactly what I want. So what I'm doing is I'm just going round in a circular motion just to add that colour. Now if you like a soft sort of blend and you don't like it all smoothed out and you like to see the textures of the card and paper, well, that's entirely up to you. For me, I know there are rules and I know everybody said you should do this and you should do that, but me personally, I don't like to go on about rules and regulations. I just like to say, you know, what some of the professionals recommend and what works for me. So that was the darkest colour, and this is my lightest colour, which is the Crimson Red. And what I'm going to do is come in with the lightest colour, and you can see again I'm just adding a very light layer, and I'm going to come down into the first colour. And what I'm doing is I'm sort of working very lightly, and eventually I'm sort of covering up all the sort of the white gaps in the card. So the more I fill in those white areas of the card, the more it smooths out. If you press on too hard, too quickly, there's nowhere to go. You can't build up layers when you've pressed on so hard that the card becomes shiny, and then you can't add any more of that lovely pigment. So what I'm going to do is just do exactly the same with the little floral. So this is my first layer of colour, my first lay down of the pigment. Now these are a wax-based pencil and they're very creamy, so they work beautifully. What I'm going to do then is still keep my fingers further up, but I'm going to press a little bit harder. And you can see that you press a little bit harder when you're doing it in real life, because you can see the pigment gets richer and smoother, and you've got less white areas visible under that area that you're colouring. So just blend that out. So I'm just pressing a tiny little bit harder, just to lay down that pigment. So just laying that down. It's funny, for me personally, I always find if I'm doing sort of pencils that are reactive with water, or I'm using the Distress Oxides, I always find that if I let the card rest a little bit, I actually get a lovely build-up of layers, and I don't break down the fibres of the card too quickly. So just blending that. Come down into the first colour. So with your second colour, press a little bit harder and then come down into that darker colour. press a little bit harder and then come down into that first colour. So again, pressing a little bit harder and then come down into the first colour. So again, I'm still using the circular motion just to come down into the floral. And what I'm doing is now I'm filling in those white areas on that card, which then becomes smoother and smoother as I'm gently layering up the colour. I'm then going to press harder. So my fingers are still up here, but I'm going to lay down a little bit more pigment now. And this is going to be my last layer. So just layering down a little bit more of that rich pigment. And as I layer it down, the card is smoothing out. The colours become more smoother because there's less white areas on the card. It's more visible on the larger floral than the smaller floral because of the surface area. Then going to go with the first colour, and I'm also going to press on with that as well and just come down into the first colour. So as I'm pressing down, there we go. Just to blend and smooth out the colour. I'm leaving a little bit of a white area sort of at the edges of the flower. You don't have to do that if you don't wish. It's entirely up to you. You may colour a different way, that's fine. It works for you and brings you joy. That's the most important thing. What I want the stamps to do is I want them to feed your imagination. I want them to encourage you to use them. I don't want to be a designer whose stamps remain on the shelf gathering dust, and that's why I pop by very frequently to make sure you have lots of inspiration. What I'm doing now is using my gel pen just to add a few little dots. And I'm just going to add little sort of dots of white just to lift and give a little touch more vibrancy to my designs. There we go. So what I can do now is I can add a little bit of dimension. So I can pinch the floral, just so it looks a little bit different. So you can pinch it more or you can pinch it less. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to add a little bit of pin flare because me personally, I love a little bit of dimension. Is it that one? There we go. Just do it so it's sort of, and do it so it's offset a little bit. Gives it a slightly different look. And I'm even going to pinch the little one as well. I just find scrunching those petals a little bit just gives a little bit more. There we go. Little bit of dimension, and twist it a little bit so that it doesn't line up with the floral. So it looks like there's more floral, and because I've got that low tack tape on there, I'm making it difficult for myself, just so you can see that. Just love that. Absolutely love it. We will add some touches of white as well. So what you can also do is, if you want to add a little bit of colour to one of the circles, let's start with the darkest colour, and I'll do exactly the same, very light layers of the colour. I'm not pressing on hard at all. Again, with the lightest colour. Go back to the darkest colour, and when you've done it a few times, obviously when you're doing small areas, you become a little bit quicker. But for me, creating isn't about being quick. So I can then just add the lightest colour. Come down into the darkest. Then just press a little bit harder, just so that you build up that pigment. Just build up the richness of colour. Then just add a little bit more of that pigment. Come down into the first colour. Now, if you want to add a little bit more darkness, bear with me. Did I leave that out? Yes, I did. If you want to add a little bit more darkness, you can take your black Prisma pencil and you can just add a little bit of a darker layer just with your black and blend that out with that dark colour that we use. But you can add a little bit more of shading with the black, so you can do that. What I'm going to do is just add a little bit of white. What I'm going to do then is just add some splatters so that we can, do I want to, yes, yeah. Do you like how I talk to myself? And if you want your splatters to hit different places, just move your card and it'll just hit different spots each time. Let's just add that, just so you can see. And because I added that faux black matte, nothing's got ruined because I did that first. But you can see, just beautiful. I will just sort of let that dry a bit because I will add another sort of layer of darkness sort of around the edge, which we can do afterwards. Now I'm going to add this straight to a white piece of card rather than the black matte, because I've got the faux black matte, because it just looks fresher and brighter. So let's just add that. I'm going to leave that low tack tape on there. I'm not going to bother pulling it off, no need. But what I'll do is I'll just add a bit of adhesive to that. So then just place that down. There we go. Don't touch your Posca pen. Just make sure you give that a few moments to dry, just so you can see. Absolutely love it. And then let's grab, what sentiments have I got on there? I have to always remind myself what sentiments we've got. Let me just place this back. I do love how I can quite easily, so that's to that one. You know when I said to you I can misplace bits of plastic? Well, it doesn't take me 5 minutes. Oh, that's in there, that's fine. So there's a couple of sentiments on here. Focus on the good, grown with love, and the other one is about flowers. So I think I'm going to go back to the Ostrich So let's just place those back. So I'm going to go back to the ostrich. Let's grab that ostrich, and I just want the word ostrich just from there, just so that I can have it separately. I'm just going to ink that in the black. I'm not going to use an acrylic block because it's just such a small amount that I'm stamping. Just grab those scissors. Let's cut that. So I've cut it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to, and I do faff. I always faff. It's just something I do. I love faffing. I'm going to just add some of that faux black matte. Sometimes I add the black around the edges. If you don't like doing this, you can use your ink pads, whichever makes you happy. So just give that a couple of seconds just to dry. Bring in that card and make sure that when you bring in your card that you are working in a clean area. So because I've got moisture on there, I'm just going to put that copy of paper on there. Bring in my card, and then I can just add the little ostrich there. Up there, that's lovely. And then I'm just going to add, where's my little pencil? I'm just going to add some of the Inktense pencil just around the edges. And what I'm going to do, what that's doing is just giving a little bit more definition. Now sometimes, like for instance, doing this, you might do this at a different stage normally. But the reason I'm doing it now is because when I've seen the overall composition, I look at things sometimes and think, oh, it just needs this. So sometimes I might add something that you would do at a different stage in your card. But sometimes I don't know these stages until I see the card finished. So just adding a little bit of that Inktense pencil. Just going to use my spritzer bottle just to add a bit of moisture, preferably not with that because it's got red on there. So let's just make sure that that is clean. And I'm just going to, with having the kitchen roll there, I can just take off some of the moisture. And what I'm doing is I'm lightly touching that Inktense pencil and I'm dragging that out with very little moisture, just so that it's not too much. It's just enough. And when you're creating the card, sort of with the naked eye, it's a lot stronger than through the camera. So I'm just taking my time just to add a little bit more definition with that Inktense pencil and just a little touch of water. There we go. So if we lift this card up now, you can see it's just lovely. I love how it's finished. I love this border and I'm loving the background stamps. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it inspires you to give some of the ideas a go. I'd like to thank you all for your support. Even when you just give me a like, it just means that more people see the post. So I truly appreciate your support and your comments. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely week, and I shall see you all soon. Bye for now.